It happened at 6:13 p.m. on a Friday. The office was nearly empty, just the hum of fluorescent lights overhead and the distant clicking of someone's keyboard. I stood in Marla Keegan's glass-walled office, watching her lean back in her chair with a smug smile that made my stomach turn. "Weekends," she said, tapping her perfectly manicured nails against her desk. "From now through the end of the quarter. Every Saturday and Sunday. 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. I stared at her, trying to process what she was saying. "Or," she continued, that smile widening, "you can consider this your voluntary resignation. Your choice, Olivia." Her voice carried through the glass walls into the hallway. I could see co-workers at their desks pretending not to listen, their eyes carefully focused on their screens while their bodies stayed perfectly still. My stomach dropped. This wasn't about business needs. This was punishment. Everyone knew it. I'd outperformed Marla's favorite employees for 3 months straight, and this was the price I had to pay. "Do we have an understanding?" Marla asked, examining her nails. "Yes," I managed to say, my voice steadier than I felt. But inside, something was already shifting. I walked out of her office with my head high, even though my hands trembled at my sides. Behind me, Marla's voice rang out, loud enough for half the floor to hear. "If you're loyal to this team, Olivia, I'll see you Saturday at 8 a.m. sharp." Phones stopped moving. Chairs froze mid-spin. The silence was deafening. I heard someone mutter, "That's messed up," but nobody said it loud enough for Marla to hear. I kept walking, my face burning with humiliation. Every step felt like a mile. The elevator couldn't come fast enough. When the doors finally closed and I was alone, I pressed my forehead against the cool metal wall and whispered to my reflection in the polished surface, "You picked the wrong person to humiliate." My voice didn't sound scared anymore. It sounded cold. Determined. Marla thought she'd broken me. She thought she'd asserted her dominance, reminded me of my place in her little kingdom. What she didn't know was that she'd just made the biggest mistake of her career. I wasn't going to quit in anger. I wasn't going to make a scene. I was going to be methodical. Professional. Devastating. And it started tonight. I sat in my small apartment that night, laptop open on my coffee table, a cup of cold coffee beside me that I'd forgotten to drink. The anger from earlier had crystallized into something sharper, more focused. I replayed the moment in Marla's office over and over. Her smug smile. Her casual cruelty. The way she'd humiliated me publicly, knowing I couldn't fight back without risking my job. I could quit immediately. Walk away Monday morning and never look back. But then Marla would win. She'd tell everyone I couldn't handle the pressure, or wasn't management material. She'd rewrite the narrative to make herself look strong and me look weak. That wasn't acceptable. So instead, I opened a blank document and titled it, Documentation for HR. I started typing. Every detail I could remember from the past 6 months working under Marla. Every unreasonable demand. Every time she'd changed schedules without notice. Every instance of her taking credit for someone else's work. My revenge wouldn't be loud or emotional. It would be systematic. Evidence-based. Irrefutable. Marla had just given the most organized employee in the department a reason to keep receipts. And I was very, very good at keeping receipts. Saturday morning arrived cold and gray. I showed up at 7:55 a.m., 5 minutes early, dressed professionally despite it being the weekend. The building was locked. By 8:15, 4 of us stood in the lobby. Me, 2 junior associates, and someone from accounting. We texted each other nervously, wondering if we'd gotten the time wrong. Marla finally arrived at 8:47, coffee in hand, sunglasses on, completely unbothered. "Traffic," she said with a shrug, not apologizing. I noted the time in my phone. 47 minutes late. No apology. No acknowledgement. Everything went into my file. The work she assigned was busy work, reorganizing files that didn't need reorganizing, generating reports nobody would read. It was punishment disguised as productivity. At 5:45, I packed up my things. "Where are you going?" Marla asked sharply. "It's 6 o'clock, I said calmly. I said around 6. "We're not done yet. Sit down." We stayed until 6:37. I documented that too. Everything Marla did, I recorded. Not emotionally. Not dramatically. Just facts, times, and dates. Marla had no idea she'd just given me ammunition. She thought she was asserting power. She was actually building my case. Monday morning, Marla called a leadership huddle, a meeting for managers and team leads to discuss weekend progress. I wasn't invited, but I could see through the glass conference room walls. Marla stood at the head of the table, presenting data I'd compiled over the weekend. Charts I'd created. Analysis I'd written. But she presented it all as her own work. I spent all weekend digging into these numbers, she said confidently. And I think you'll see the efficiency gains are remarkable. The regional director, Mr. Harrison, nodded approvingly. Excellent work, Marla. This is exactly the kind of initiative we need from our leadership team. Marla beamed. I watched from my desk, smiling politely when she glanced my way. Inside, I opened my documentation file and typed, Incident number 14, Credit Theft. Leadership Huddle, November 18th. Marla presented my weekend analysis as her own work. Regional Director present as witness. The cracks in Marla's carefully constructed facade were widening. She was so confident in her power that she'd become sloppy, careless. And I was cataloging every single mistake. Eventually, those cracks would become chasms. And when they did, I'd be ready. Over the next few days, something unexpected happened. Coworkers started talking to me. Not openly. Marla had made it clear that associating with me was dangerous. But in quiet moments, people would approach. She changed the schedule again without asking. Someone from operations whispered at the coffee machine. Third time this month. She deleted my overtime requests, a junior analyst told me in the parking lot. Submitted them 3 times. They keep disappearing. She threatened me with a write-up if I didn't come in Sunday, another coworker admitted during lunch. Said it would affect my annual review. I never asked for information. I never prompted anyone. I just listened. But people told me things because I was the one person in the department who never betrayed confidences. I didn't gossip. I didn't backstab. I was trustworthy. And now that trust was becoming valuable. Every piece of information they shared, I stored carefully. Names, dates, specific incidents. I wasn't collecting gossip. I was documenting a pattern of behavior. Marla thought she'd isolated me. Instead, she'd made me the center of an invisible network. People were watching. And they were starting to hope I'd do something about it. 2 days later, while reviewing departmental data for a quarterly report, I noticed something strange. The hours submitted to corporate didn't match the actual hours employees had worked. We'd worked 73 hours of weekend overtime in the past month. But the submitted report showed only 41 hours. The numbers were too perfect. Too clean. Almost like someone had adjusted them to make the department look more efficient than it actually was. I pulled up the previous quarter's data. Same pattern. Hours worked versus hours reported. Always a significant gap. Someone was falsifying timesheets. And there was only one person with access to modify the final submissions before they went to corporate. Marla. I didn't say anything. Didn't confront anyone. Didn't ask questions that might alert her. I just took screenshots of everything. Raw data from the time tracking system. The cleaned up reports submitted to corporate. Side-by-side comparisons with timestamps. The evidence was damning. And it was only getting stronger. Marla was digging her own grave. I was just making sure there was a detailed map of where all the bodies were buried. Weekend 2 arrived, and Marla was in a mood. She stormed in Saturday morning screaming about a shipment that had been delayed, something completely outside our department's control, as if I'd personally sabotaged the company. This is unacceptable, she yelled, slamming a binder onto my desk so hard that papers scattered. You're supposed to be coordinating with logistics. What am I even paying you for? The entire team stopped working, staring in shock. I'll follow up with the logistics team immediately, I said quietly, keeping my voice even. You're incompetent, she hissed, leaning close enough that I could smell her coffee breath. Maybe I made a mistake promoting you in the first place. My hands trembled under the desk where she couldn't see them. Rage and humiliation burned in my chest. But I didn't cry. Not in front of her. Not where she could see me break. Instead, I waited until she walked away, then opened my phone and typed, Incident number 23, verbal abuse. Public humiliation. Through binder. Called me incompetent. 6 witnesses present. November 23rd. 9:47 a.m. Professional. Factual. Devastating. Sunday night, I broke. I sat on my couch still wearing my work clothes, too exhausted to change. Tears slid down my face, hot and unstoppable. My body ached. My mind felt numb. I couldn't keep working like this. Every weekend sacrificed. Every evening stolen. Every humiliation endured. For what? A paycheck? A job title that meant nothing when my manager treated me like garbage? I wanted to quit. Right then. Send an email and never go back. But I knew what would happen if I did. Marla would tell everyone I couldn't handle the pressure. She'd rewrite history to make herself look strong and me look weak. So instead, I wiped my tears, opened my laptop, and started applying for new jobs. 5 applications that night. Then 10. Then 20. My resume was strong. Years of experience, proven results, leadership skills. Someone would want me. Someone would value what I brought to the table. I just had to survive long enough to find them. As I hit submit on application number 23, I felt something shift. This wasn't just about escaping anymore. This was about winning. The callback came Wednesday afternoon. Riverstone Logistics, a growing company across town with a reputation for treating employees well. We were really impressed with your application, Olivia, the hiring manager said warmly. Your experience is exactly what we need. Could you come in Friday for an interview? My heart raced. Absolutely. What time works best? The interview went better than I could have hoped. They asked thoughtful questions about my leadership style, my problem-solving approach, my long-term career goals. They listened when I spoke. They took notes. They smiled. What does work-life balance mean to you? The hiring manager asked near the end. I almost cried right there. When was the last time anyone had asked me that? It means being respected enough to have a life outside of work, I said honestly. It means my time has value. She nodded. That's exactly the culture we're building here. When I left that interview, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Real, tangible hope that there was a way out. That not every workplace was like the nightmare I was currently living. I just had to hold on a little longer. Monday morning, Marla dragged me into her office with a sharp, Olivia now. I followed, closing the door behind me as she sat down and studied me with narrowed eyes. You looked exhausted this weekend, she said, a mocking edge to her voice. Maybe you're not management material after all. Maybe I overestimated your capabilities. She waited for me to defend myself, to argue, to show weakness. I said nothing. Just looked at her calmly, my face neutral. My silence seemed to unsettle her more than any argument would have. Her smile faltered slightly. Bullies hate when their targets stop reacting. It robs them of the power they crave. Do you have anything to say? She demanded. No. Marla. I understand your concerns. Her jaw tightened. She'd wanted a fight, and I'd refused to give her one. Fine. Get back to work. As I walked out, I saw frustration flash across her face. She was losing control of the narrative, even if she didn't fully realize it yet. And that scared her. I could see it in her eyes, a flicker of fear she couldn't quite hide. That afternoon, while accessing a shared drive folder to retrieve old project files, I stumbled across something I wasn't supposed to see. A spreadsheet titled, Staffing Efficiency, Q4 Report. I opened it, curious. My blood ran cold. The document showed falsified staffing numbers, data that painted our department as flawlessly efficient, with perfect attendance, minimal overtime, and maximum productivity. It contradicted everything I'd been documenting. Everything I knew to be true. But more importantly, it was the kind of document careers were built on. Promotions were justified with data like this. Bonuses were calculated from these numbers. And it was completely fabricated. I checked the document properties. Created by Marla Keegan. Last modified 3 days ago. She'd been systematically lying to corporate for months, possibly years. Making herself look like a management genius while overworking and underpaying her team. My hands shook as I copied the file to a USB drive I kept in my bag. Then I took screenshots showing the file path, the timestamps, the metadata. This wasn't just ammunition anymore. This was a nuclear weapon. And I was no longer afraid to use it. Weekend 3 pushed everyone to their breaking point. Marla arrived Saturday in a rage about quarterly projections, even though those projections had nothing to do with weekend work. She was looking for someone to blame, and I was her favorite target. "You either commit to this job or get out," she screamed at me in front of the entire weekend team. "I'm tired of your attitude. I'm tired of your excuses. If you can't handle this, there's the door." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The air felt electric with tension. For the first time, I saw genuine fear in Marla's eyes. She realized in that moment that she'd gone too far. That witnesses were watching her lose control publicly. But she was too proud to back down now. I didn't respond. Didn't defend myself. Didn't take the bait. I just gathered my things calmly and walked away. "Where are you going?" she called after me. "I didn't dismiss you. I'll be in the break room if you need me," I said evenly, not looking back. Behind me, I heard whispers starting. The team exchanging glances. Someone's phone discreetly recording. Marla had just destroyed her own credibility, and she didn't even realize it yet. Friday afternoon, my phone buzzed with an email notification. Riverstone Logistics. Job offer. My hands shook as I opened it. Better salary. 15% higher than what I currently made. Real benefits. Generous PTO. A manager who, during my interview, had asked what work-life balance meant to me. "We'd love to have you join our team, Olivia. Please review the attached offer letter and let us know your decision by next Friday." I read the letter 3 times, barely believing what I was seeing. This was real. This was my way out. I sat at my desk, tears pricking my eyes, and let myself feel relief for the first time in months. But even as joy flooded through me, another emotion rose alongside it: determination. I wasn't just going to leave quietly. I wasn't going to let Marla continue treating people this way. I was going to make sure the truth came out before I left. I opened my documentation file, now 53 pages long, and started organizing it by category. Timesheet fraud, verbal abuse, credit theft, retaliation, schedule manipulation. Everything I needed was here. Every piece of evidence. Every witness statement. Every falsified report. Now I just needed to deliver it properly. I spent all day Sunday exporting and organizing my documentation into a comprehensive report. Dates and times for every incident. Screenshots with timestamps. Emails with full headers. Witness statements I'd collected informally. The falsified efficiency reports. The timesheet discrepancies. The pattern of retaliation. I cross-referenced everything, made sure every claim was supported by evidence, verified that all my dates and facts aligned perfectly. By the time I finished, the file was 67 pages long. I titled it, Formal Complaint, Keegan Investigation, Supporting Documentation. No emotional language. No personal attacks. Just facts, presented clearly and professionally. I included a table of contents. I cited company policies that had been violated. I provided specific examples with dates and witnesses for each allegation. It was thorough. It was damning. And most importantly, it was irrefutable. I saved 3 copies. One on my personal laptop, one on a USB drive, and one in a secure cloud folder. Then I drafted the email that would end everything. Subject line: Formal resignation and supporting documentation. Recipients: HR, Regional Director, Corporate Compliance, Payroll. CC: Marla Keegan. My finger hovered over send. Not yet. Monday morning. Maximum impact. Crafting that resignation email took me 2 hours. Every word had to be perfect, professional, clear, devastating. Dear HR Department, please accept this email as formal notice of my resignation from my position, effective immediately. I am providing supporting documentation regarding serious concerns about management practices in my department. Attached you will find comprehensive evidence of timesheet falsification and overtime theft, systematic retaliation against employees, verbal abuse and hostile work environment, credit theft and misrepresentation of employee contribution, schedule manipulation without proper notice or compensation. All claims are supported by dates, times, witnesses, and documentary evidence. I am available to discuss these matters further with appropriate company representatives. Thank you for the opportunity to serve this organization. I hope this documentation helps prevent other employees from experiencing similar treatment. Sincerely, Olivia Chen. No anger. No insults. No emotion. Just professionally presented truth that would be impossible to ignore or dismiss. I attached the 67-page file and scheduled the email to send Monday morning at 8:01 a.m. Then I went to bed and slept better than I had in months. Saturday, the final weekend. Marla ordered me to stay late. I need you here until 7, she said. We're behind on projections. Of course, I replied with a smile. She looked confused by my compliance, suspicious of my good mood. What she didn't know was that I'd never step foot in this building as her employee again. I'd already boxed up my personal belongings. Already returned the supplies that weren't mine. Already said private goodbyes to coworkers I trusted. As I worked that final Saturday, I felt lighter than I had in years. Every task I completed, every document I filed, it was all with the knowledge that this was the last time. When I walked out Sunday evening, I looked back at the building and whispered, goodbye. Not to the company. Not to my coworkers. To Marla. To the abuse. To the person I'd been when I was too scared to fight back. That version of me was gone now. The person walking to her car was someone stronger. Someone who'd learned that silence could be more powerful than shouting. That documentation could be more devastating than confrontation. Tomorrow, everything would change. Monday morning, 8:01 a.m., I hit send. The email left my outbox with a soft whoosh sound that felt like thunder. I sat at my desk, hands folded, breathing slowly. Around me, the office hummed with normal Monday morning energy. People making coffee. Logging into computers. Complaining about traffic. At 8:04, I heard a sharp gasp from Marla's office. At 8:06, my computer pinged. Corporate HR had replied, "We will be launching an immediate review. Olivia, please return your company equipment and take the morning off with pay. We will contact you for follow-up questions." But then something unexpected happened. At 8:12, my personal email started filling with messages from coworkers. People sending me additional evidence I hadn't even known about. Olivia, I have recordings from when Marla threatened my job. Here are the schedule change emails she never properly documented. I screenshotted when she deleted my overtime requests. Turns out I wasn't the only one documenting Marla's behavior. Other employees had been keeping records too, just waiting for someone brave enough to act first. The flood of evidence turned my 67 pages into over 200 pages of systematic abuse. Marla rushed out of her office at 8:15, pale and shaking. Her carefully styled hair was already coming undone, and her hands trembled as she approached my desk. "Olivia," she said, her voice cracking. "Can we talk privately? Please." The entire office had gone quiet, watching. I looked up at her calmly. "No. Marla. Please direct any communication through HR. That's the appropriate channel now." "But you don't understand. I can explain." "HR," I repeated gently but firmly. "All communication should go through HR." Her face crumpled. This was the first time in 3 years I'd ever told her no. The first time I'd refused her anything. The shift in power was palpable. She felt it. I felt it. Everyone watching felt it. She wasn't my manager anymore. She wasn't in control. She was just someone facing consequences for the first time in her career. "Please," she whispered. "Let's just talk." "I have nothing to say to you," I said quietly. "Everything I needed to communicate is in my formal documentation." She backed away slowly, and I saw something break behind her eyes. She knew. She finally knew that she'd pushed the wrong person too far. By 9:30, 2 HR representatives and Regional Director Harrison arrived in person. They went straight to Marla's office and closed the door. Through the glass walls, we could see animated conversation. Marla gesturing frantically, the HR reps taking notes, Harrison's face growing darker by the minute. Doors closed. Voices rose. At one point, Marla stood up, shouting something we couldn't hear. Co-workers exchanged meaningful glances. Someone whispered, "She's done." Marla tried blaming me for everything. I learned this later from someone in HR who felt I deserved to know. She claimed I was a disgruntled employee making false allegations. That I'd been underperforming. That the weekend work was voluntary and I'd been compensated fairly. But the documentation was airtight. 67 pages of time-stamped evidence. Screenshots with metadata. Witness statements from multiple employees. The falsified efficiency reports with her digital signature. And now, over 200 pages total with the additional evidence other employees had provided. Every lie she told, the documentation contradicted. Every excuse she made, the evidence disproved. She'd been so confident in her power that she'd never bothered to cover her tracks properly. And now it was destroying her. Corporate launched a full audit that afternoon. Forensic accountants dug into the timesheets. HR interviewed employees one by one. IT pulled deleted emails and file access logs. They reconstructed months of Marla's activity, and every discovery pointed to the same pattern. Systematic timesheet falsification. Employees working unpaid overtime while Marla reported minimal hours to make herself look efficient. Intimidation tactics. Threatening write-ups, demotions, and termination to force compliance. Retaliation. Targeting employees who outperformed her favorites or questioned her decisions. Schedule manipulation. Changing schedules without notice or proper documentation, then blaming employees for confusion. Credit theft. Presenting others' work as her own to advance her career. The list went on. And on. And on. Meanwhile, I was already filling out onboarding paperwork at Riverstone Logistics. My new manager welcomed me warmly, showed me my office, introduced me to a team that seemed genuinely happy to meet me. "We're excited to have you here," she said. "Your experience is going to be invaluable." I smiled, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Valued. While Marla's world collapsed, mine was beginning again. 3 days into the investigation, Marla did something desperate. She emailed me directly, violating the HR directive to cease all contact. "Olivia, please. You don't understand. I'll lose everything. My career, my reputation, everything I've built. Can't we work this out? I made mistakes, but this is destroying my life. Please retract the documentation. Please." I read the email twice, feeling nothing. No satisfaction. No pity. Just cold, professional detachment. I forwarded it directly to HR without comment. No explanation needed. Marla had just violated a direct order and provided additional evidence of her poor judgment. 30 minutes later, HR replied, "Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Please continue to direct all communication through appropriate channels. You are under no obligation to respond to Ms. Keegan." That email sealed it. Marla had been given clear instructions and immediately violated them. Even in crisis, she couldn't follow basic professional standards. It was over. What destroyed Marla most wasn't my anger or my revenge. It was my professionalism. The fact that I never sank to her level. Never screamed. Never made threats. I'd simply presented truth and let it do its work. Friday afternoon, 5 days after I sent that email, HR announced the outcome. Marla Keegan was terminated for cause. Effective immediately. No severance package. No references. No eligibility for rehire. A formal misconduct report added to her permanent file that would follow her to any future employer conducting background checks. Her office was cleaned out by security that same afternoon. She wasn't even allowed to pack her own things. HR did it for her and had everything shipped to her home. Her reputation in the industry, carefully built over 15 years, was shredded in 5 days. Her career trajectory, once pointing towards senior management, was effectively over. Co-workers quietly celebrated. Some cried with relief. 2 employees told me privately that they'd been planning to quit but would stay now that Marla was gone. Everyone knew I'd triggered the investigation. But nobody viewed me as vindictive or cruel. They saw me as brave. As someone who'd stood up when others were too scared. "Thank you," 3 different people told me that week. "You saved us." I hadn't been trying to save anyone. I'd just been trying to survive. But sometimes survival and justice look the same. My first week at Riverstone Logistics felt surreal. My new manager, Patricia, treated me like an asset, not a burden. She asked my opinion in meetings. She gave me autonomy over projects. She welcomed my ideas instead of stealing them. "Your insight on the logistics workflow is excellent," she told me after my first presentation. "I love how you think about user experience." When I worked late one evening, she sent me an email. "Go home, Olivia. The work will be here tomorrow. Your personal time matters." I almost cried reading it. For the first time in years, I slept without anxiety. I woke up without dread. I went to work feeling energized instead of defeated. I sat at my new desk one morning, sunlight warm on my shoulders, and thought, I didn't just escape. I won. Not because Marla lost her job, that was just consequences. I won because I refused to let her break me. Because I stayed professional when everything in me wanted to scream. Because I documented truth instead of seeking revenge. I won because I was free. And freedom, I'd learned, was the sweetest victory of all. A month later, a LinkedIn message appeared in my inbox. My heart stopped when I saw the sender. Marla Keegan. I almost deleted it without reading. But curiosity won. "Hi Olivia. I hope you're doing well at your new position. I wanted to reach out because I'm currently exploring new opportunities. I saw that Riverstone Logistics is hiring for several management positions. Do you know if any openings might be a good fit for my experience? I'd appreciate any insights you could share." I stared at the message for a full minute, processing the audacity. The woman who'd abused me, humiliated me, stolen credit for my work, and threatened my job was now asking me for help finding employment. I took a deep breath, placed my fingers on the keyboard, and typed a response that was professional, gracious, and devastating in its simplicity. "I wish you the best in your job search." Then I closed LinkedIn, shut my laptop, and walked into my next meeting. Calm, respected, and valued. I didn't need to destroy Marla. She'd destroyed herself. I just shined a light on what was already there. Justice didn't require revenge. It required truth. And truth, delivered professionally and documented thoroughly, was more powerful than any act of vengeance could ever be. I'd won. Not by bringing her down, but by refusing to stay down myself. And that made all the difference.